Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alicia.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Len.
Welcome to episode 234 of Adventures and Mousecapades.
This week's guest doesn't need an introduction if you're a deep Disney nerd, but since my mom listens to this show, we're going to do one just for her.
If you've ever wondered how busy a Disney park is going to be when you're planning to visit or wanted someone to help you figure out which ride to rope drop and which one to hit after lunch, our guest has your answer. If you've ever listened to the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill and enjoyed a good pun or inside Disney joke, our guest is a familiar voice. And if you've ever leveraged the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, our guest is one of your guides. Unofficially, of course.
Our guest is the president of Touring Plans, one of the most trusted corners of the internet when it comes to Disney World, Disneyland, Universal Orlando, and the Disney Cruise Line. He's co-author of the Unofficial Guides, as Alicia mentioned, to Disney World, Disneyland, and British theme parks, which is a thing, and a contributor to the Unofficial Guide to Las Vegas. He also wrote the foreword to Why the Magic Matters, which we covered earlier on our show, a fantastic academic book, and worked with a contributor on that volume talking about data science and Disney. And since we are nerds, we reached out to Len to have him on our show. So without further ado, we want to extend a warm welcome to the man, the myth, the legend, Len Testa.
Thank you for having me, Nathan. And Alicia, thank you for having me as well.
Absolutely. So again, you're one of the most trusted voices in Disney planning. How did that all get started? Was Disney
Everyone has made terrible decisions along the way.
Was Disney a big part of your life growing up? Was it like Jazzer or Mouser Size and all the rest of that stuff on Disney Channel?
Yeah, it was many years ago when I was very young. My grandparents moved to Florida from Ohio because when you retire back then, you were legally obligated to move to Florida.
Right. It's in the contract.
Exactly. And I have a twin sister, and we used to spend summers with my grandparents in Florida. And one summer they took us to Disney World. And I don't remember very much about the whole trip, but my earliest memory of Walt Disney World is standing in the line for Pirates of the Caribbean, realizing that the lights in the queue flickered as if they were candles, but we knew they were electric lights, and realizing that somebody had to design a light bulb that flickered like a candle. And I was immediately impressed that anyone had thought of that and then went ahead and did it. And I've been in love with the parks ever since. Like I think the parks are truly one of the great man-made locations anywhere on Earth. I honestly believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
After that, my twin sister and I, because we have a birthday, we share a birthday in August.
That's how that works.
We would. It does. Yeah, it does. We're not identical. Let me get that out of the way too. We would visit every year on our birthday. And the summer before I started graduate school in computer science, we waited in line for 2 hours for this ride called the Great Movie Ride. And I was like, oh God, there's got to be a better way to see the parks than this. So we went back to my thesis advisors. I said I wanted to write a computer program where you told the computer program the rides you wanted to ride in Disney World, and the computer program told you the order in which you should ride the rides to minimize your wait in line. As it turns out, that is a super complicated scheduling problem. It's one of the benchmark problems in math and computer science. It's this thing called the traveling salesman problem. So my master's thesis expanded on the PhD dissertation of UPS's lead research scientist, because UPS faces the same problem every day.
Right.
Like imagine you're the delivery driver for UPS. The rides you want to ride are the customers you need to visit. And then the wait in line for the ride is the traffic at a particular time of day between customers. So yeah.
Wow. And they're figuring out all the routes and optimize time and avoid left turns and all the rest of that.
Exactly. Avoid left turns. It's a thing. Yeah. So it was Chrissy Malandraki was the lead research scientist names. And then there was a guy named Bob Dial at the Volpe National Transportation Lab at Harvard, who were really helpful in getting like the first half of my thesis done. Yeah.
Well, a lot of what you do today feels like data science before people even called it that.
Yeah.
How do your computer science roots shape the way that you look at Disney parks today?
That's a great question. So while I was doing my master's thesis, I realized that this guy named Bob Selinger, who was writing the Unofficial Guide at the time, was really the only person sort of combining math and operations research with travel, right? And so Bob started the guide in '86. He literally the first person. He invented touring plans. It was his idea for things like Disney crowd calendars. My contribution there was sort of to productionalize, those ideas and turn basically Excel spreadsheets and back of the napkin math into formal things. One of the things that I realized though with computer science is solving problems in a formal structured way. And so that's a skill that you can apply to lots of other things. I am not great at math. I was joking with you guys before we started. My wife is getting her master's degree from Columbia in math. And I am not that good. I'm good enough, right? Yeah. So for me, a lot of it is like, how do I break down this problem of, predicting wait times into manageable chunks, and what do I need to know at every step of the way? And that's just another form of problem solving.
Yeah.
So that really helps. The forecasting that we do obviously takes a ton of computational power and lots and lots and lots of data. So we've been collecting things like Disney World wait time since 2009. Yeah. And so analyzing that data is sort of like the fundamental thing that we do every day. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to cycle back to that, but in the meantime, I want to share a quote from Why the Magic Matters, and Lucy D'Agostino McGowan.
Lucy at Wake Forest, yeah, she's great.
She wrote, quote, "For a Disney park goer, whether you realize it or not, you are immersed in a world meticulously designed with data analytics. Disney uses data to shape nearly every part of the guest experience."
Yep.
Can you expand a little on that from your perspective? I mean, your point of view, you are in this data all the time.
Yeah.
How does that translate?
One of the best lines that Bob Selinger ever wrote in the Unofficial Guide was this, and it's a quote: "Disney's the ultimate system." So theme parks operate on a predictable basis. Lines form in mostly predictable ways. And Bob was the first to recognize that and subject it to academic study. My take on this, because I'm a smartass, and my quote is this: Disney's an analytics company that just happens to run theme parks and make movies. The analytics team in Disney is the secret sauce that none of their competitors have been able to match. And if you understand that and look at the basis for how the parks runs as spreadsheets and quantifiable data, then everything makes sense.
Yeah.
So Disney's analytics capabilities are world-class in a way that no other theme park operator is. I've spoken to theme park operators, obviously, Disney, Universal, but all the way down to, regional theme parks like Hershey's, right?
Right.
And the gulf in analytics capabilities between the very top tier, Disney's number one, Universal is second, and it's not close. And then there is a huge canyon between those two and everyone else. I haven't actually spoken with Merlin. But you got those top three, and then everything after that it's basically like mom and pop almost. Everyone's getting better. But analytics is the key to how a Disney theme park does what it does.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that and you start collecting the data, you can see how they make decisions. Yeah.
Is that why on the Disney Dish you guys are often picking apart the guest surveys that come in, because it is kind of an insight into what they're trying to figure out?
Yeah, so Disney uses surveys a couple of interesting ways. One is to check how something new is faring, right? So new ride opens up, you get in a survey immediately that asks, is this better or worse than the refurb? So for example, Buzz Lightyear just reopened, Big Thunder just reopened in the Magic Kingdom, and people who rode those in the first month the park was open literally got an immediate survey that said, "Hey, you rode this. Quick question: was it better or worse before?" Right. But the other way that they use surveys is they have an idea and they want to test out what the potential reaction to that's going to be. So if you've been listening to the Disney Dish recently, the Disney Cruise Line's been sending out an interesting set of surveys that ask how effective certain hypothetical promotions might be. So if you're on the Disney website, for example, and a pop-up window appears that says, we'll give you $500 off your cruise if you book now. They're trying to figure out how successful that campaign might be before they actually commit to $500 less in revenue per cruise. The other thing that they use is the same dollar amount in discounts, but phrased differently. Like, we'll give you $250 off and free internet, which works out to be almost exactly $500. And you see the same thing at Disney World with resort discounts, right? So you can get like 20% off a room or quick service free dining. And for most people, on average, it's the same amount for Disney. So it's interesting to see how they phrase discounts to see how people respond to them. That's really interesting to me.
Pulling back over to touring plans, how did touring plans actually come to life?
Oh, it's a great story. So, so I started doing research for the Unofficial Guide in like 1997 while I was in grad school because I was spending so much time in the parks collecting data. I would write to Bob and say things like, "Hey, the name of this bridge on the name of the fort on Tom Sawyer Island has changed to Fort Langhorne. Update this." And so it was like, change this line in the book. Right. And just like anything, a couple of lines becomes a paragraph, paragraphs become the section, sections become pages. Yeah. So by 2003, I was co-authoring the book. But one of the things that we realized early on was that the touring plans that we had in the Unofficial Guide were good, but they assumed certain things in print, right? So in print, you can't give people different touring plans for like if I show up at rope drop versus 15 minutes later versus 15 minutes later than that versus 15 minutes later, right? So we had this idea for computerized touring plans. And the initial thing, the funny thing initially was this. We went to Wiley, the publisher, and said, "Hey, we want to do a website." And they were like, "Absolutely not. It's going to cannibalize sales of the book."
Oh, wow.
And so we didn't do it in 97, but in 2001, we launched touringplans.com.
Yeah.
Despite, we're like, I think Wiley's wrong. And the funny thing was that we found out immediately, not only did it not cannibalize book sales, it actually kept the book relevant during, basically the next 20 years, because people read the book and were like, "Oh, I like these tools that you can do." Because certain tools like touring plans with different arrival times, you can't do those in print, but they're custom made for, for the internet, right? So over time, we started adding to touring plans tools that we couldn't put in print. So we did things like the least expensive ticket calculator, which finds you the cheapest combination of tickets that you can buy to do everything you want to do in Disney. And all of those started off as basically problems that we encountered either in planning Disney trips or that readers were telling us about for the Unofficial Guide. And so the philosophy of the website is we can implement online tools that we can't solve in the book. And so that's been super successful. Even to this day, I mean, travel books don't sell as much anymore because of the internet in general. But I think everyone would agree the reason why the Unofficial Guide is still as successful as it is because there's always been a companion website to direct people back and forth.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And to your point, you can't update a book because, Splash Mountain is going to be closed from January 15th to February, 25th. And that changes the math considerably and stuff like that.
It does. At one point, we were updating the book every 3 months. The issue became, not that we couldn't do the updates. Right. There were two issues. One, indexing a book, especially an 800-page book like the Unofficial Guide, takes time.
Yeah.
So whenever we had changes that would affect pagination, that was time consuming. But the other thing was too, Amazon has this policy where Amazon will look at a set of corrections or updates that an author makes and sends in. And Amazon, in its sole discretion, will determine whether that update is enough to update like the Kindle edition of the book.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
So like imagine Disney World closes Frontierland.
Right.
Right. We all know that that's a huge change.
Right.
Amazon might disagree. and so we were doing these updates, and not all of them were making it through to the Kindle edition. So we're spending all of this time, and paying people to do, re-indexing and stuff and then it just wasn't making it to the end user. And so we're back to, annual updates. Not because we don't want to do it, because Amazon is, and you can't. There's nobody at Amazon you can call.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't reason with Amazon.
Right.
So
they're down the street if you need me to go find someone.
You find me the right person, and I'll start visiting. Yeah. I mean, honestly, God, if I could send someone. If I could send the person at Amazon who makes a decision, if I could send them like Harry and David gift baskets with every update, I would do it. Like, find me that person's name, I'll do it. Right? Yeah.
Send them a tower.
Yeah.
Exactly. Chocolates for everyone.
For someone who's brand new to all this, in your kind of in simple terms, what would you describe a touring plan to be? Like, how does this work? What does it get you?
Yeah. So a touring plan is a step-by-step itinerary or seeing the things that you want to see in a Disney theme park while minimizing your wait in line.
Okay.
And we use historical wait time data, again, that we've collected since 2009 to predict reasonably accurately how long you're going to wait in line at each ride in basically 1 minute increments throughout the day. So if you create a touring plan, sometime in June of 2026, for Christmas Day 2026. On the website right now, there are predictions that tell you this is how long we think you're going to wait at Space Mountain at noon on December 25th, 2026. Wow. The interesting thing is we had to wait until Amazon Web Services and the iPhone came before we could do real-time updates to those touring plans. So we have an app called Lines where you can, it's sort of like Waze for theme parks, if you're familiar with Waze.
Yeah.
But basically we can do real-time updates on your touring plan. So if a ride breaks down or, an unexpected Brazilian tour group gets in your way, we will update your touring plan in real time to route you around those things. Have you guys heard the story of how we started doing real-time updates?
No.
Bob and I like to joke that every sentence in the unofficial guide and everything you read on touringplans.com exists because we made a mistake and learned from it. And so back in 2010, I was doing a father-daughter trip with my daughter, Hannah, and we were getting in line. We were getting onto Peter Pan's flight. Mm-hmm. And you guys are parents, right, Alicia? Mm-hmm. I am 100% certain that when that child got on Peter Pan's flight, she was wearing 2 shoes. Guarantee it. 100%. I am certain. We got off that ride and she was wearing 1 shoe. And so we had to stop a touring plan, and it was a paper touring plan at the time, and spend half an hour finding her a pair of shoes that A, she would wear, B, would not give her blisters, walk around the park,
right.
and see that that she would keep wearing out to the park. Yeah. And that screwed up the touring plan because we were using paper-based touring plans.
Yeah.
So I went back to my team and I was like, we need a button that basically says re-optimize from this point forward for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And so that's how that happened.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank goodness for kids losing shoes.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Learn from your mistakes. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Where does all your data actually come from? Is this guest submitted observed data, or do you have a secret Disney supercomputer connection?
So we get data 3 ways. So if we're talking about like wait time data, 3 ways. One, from users who submit their actual wait times in line while waiting in the park. So like we have a timer built into the Lines app, and you can say things like, I've just entered the line for Peter Pan's flight. I start now, and then you stop the timer right before you get on the ride. That gets sent to our servers, and we do that. We also have people like full-time staff whose job is to be in the parks. And primarily what they do is look for discrepancies between the posted wait time on the sign out in front of the ride and what the line looks like. So for example, if you're in Fantasyland and the Peter Pan's flight sign says 5-minute wait, but the line goes outside the ride and down the walkway in Fantasyland, it's not a 5-minute wait.
Right.
So our staff's job is to get in that line and do the actual timing themselves.
Got it.
The third way that we get it is, and I don't think this is a state secret, if you know where to look in My Disney Experience or in Universal's app, there's a data feed where you can pull those data, and we pull it every couple of minutes. And by the way, I've actually had conversations with Disney's teams, internal teams, they know that we do this.
Yeah.
They know that everybody does it. It's fine, right?
That was actually one of the biggest questions I want to ask because, between yourselves with wait time data or tools like mouse dining, where it seems like, there is a reservation that somebody cancels and all of a sudden I have a text on my phone that says, here's a link, go book this now because it meets your criteria. Like, is it literally just the equivalent of screen scraping the data or does Disney actually have an API feed that they kind of give to select partners?
It's a mix, actually. So, and internally, Disney looks at those two things vastly differently. I think in this day and age, they don't have qualms one way or the other about people capturing wait times. Like, I think that's, and we don't actually capture them directly from MDE. We use, if you guys are familiar with GitHub, there's a repository called CubeHouse that is basically the central repository. Everybody that I know that captures theme park wait times uses CubeHouse's GitHub repository for that. So we don't all bang against Disney servers, and Disney knows this, right? I've had conversations with them. Disney knows that as long as we're not all banging against their servers, and there's one central repository that does that, that's better for the entire ecosystem.
Sure.
Right? Where they tend to be more concerned about server load is for things that scrape or use the APIs directly. And so things like dining reservations are one of them.
Right.
And really for them, like they know that reservation finder sites are sort of like not necessarily the cost of doing business, but they provide a service to guests that Disney can't or won't provide themselves.
Right.
Right. And they know, like I've had this conversation. They know, and I'm not mentioning mouse dining specifically, but I know that they know who to call at mouse dining if mouse dining behaves unprofessionally. With those requests, and and they know that, right? So the thing that they are mostly concerned with is be a good consumer of their data. And that's just common sense, right? Like we're all of us are in IT, right?
Yeah.
We know what it's like to be on call, right? With a system. The last thing you want to do, and this is what I tell people all the time, like when people email me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and I need to scrape some or hit a Disney API," I'm like, step one, don't be an animal, right? Be a professional here,
right?
Because the last thing you want is to wake somebody up at 2:00 in the morning because you're hitting their API every 2 seconds or something. That's just not cool. So they know what happens. They know who everyone is involved. There's a list of phone numbers they can call if they know something, goes wrong. So for them, it's, I can't say on the Disney side. I'm not going to say it's like a necessary evil. It's, they know that it exists, and we exist in a sort of state of like benign neglect, if you will, where as long as you don't screw things up, everyone's cool. Yeah. Right.
It's like a deprecated feature. It's not supported, but it's not necessarily like it still works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they know. They just as long as you don't keep everyone up at nights or make them work on weekends. Again, everything's kind of okay.
Yeah. So you guys talked about this. Jim talked at this at length recently on the Disney Dish. There is we often say on our show that Disney has wonderful technology aspirations, and the lived experience of the guest often falls short of where I think Disney has set that mark in the goal.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Having seen kind of under the covers, like, is it just a confluence of legacy systems and cruft and all the rest of that stuff that is just really difficult to overcome?
Yeah, so we're talking about things like, I'll give you an example. In the old days, when My Disney Experience first came out, if you wanted to make a dining reservation, it would actually make you sign into the website. Like it would launch a browser from your phone outside of the app. You have to log in and do it that way. And so it wasn't really integrated. I think there are a couple of, probably 3 reasons for stuff like that. One is, to your point, Ethan, legacy systems. When you're, Disney, you've got disparate systems that do different things. There's a hotel system. There's a separate restaurant system, right? There's a separate transportation system. And getting those things integrated over time and keeping them updated is difficult, right? Anyone who's worked in IT knows what dealing with legacy systems is like.
Yeah.
The things two things are interesting to me. One is, do you remember like back when Bob Chapek was Disney's CEO? I think on an earnings call, he once tried to position Disney as a technology company instead of a legacy media company.
Yeah.
And I was listening. I remember where I was listening to that. And my comment was, the way to tell whether something's a technology company is, do you pay your developers the same amount of money as Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, and so on? And if you do, you're probably a technology company. If you don't, you're not, right? So do you value your developers the way that true technology companies do? And Disney doesn't. They're not a technology company. They're getting better. They're much better, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think that's interesting when looking at Disney tech is, for a long time, they were willing to accept a lot of friction on the user experience side because fixing it would have cost money, right? Like going back to the dining reservation thing, Jim and I have said on the show many times that the My Disney Experience app would look vastly different if Disney executives had to use it to plan their own vacations.
Yes.
Like, and you guys know that, like, the term for this in tech is dog fooding, right?
Right.
You got to eat your own dog food.
Yep.
And it's one of the core things that we do with the Lines app is that the people who develop our app have to use it in the parks, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
To see what users experience. Like, I want to find out what the parade schedule is. Well, if it takes 12 clicks to do that, that's a bad user experience. So we got to fix that. Disney, again, My Disney Experience is getting better on that. But the overall experience of visiting Walt Disney World in general, not just the technology, would be different if Disney executives had to plan their trips like guests do. Like, I firmly believe that. And that's like, if I could suggest one improvement, it's that. Go use your own stuff. See what happens.
I want a Disney Cruise Line executive to have to check into a cruise. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh, it's insane.
How many cruises have you guys been on?
20.
20. So
sorry,
you're
19. 20 will be the next one.
Platinum, but not Pearl.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll get there eventually.
25 is Pearl, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, squad goals. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
You got to move to Florida where you get those last minute Florida resident discounts. Yeah.
Eventually.
Don't think that's not on our roadmap.
3 nights on the Dream counts as one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's our problem is we do a lot of longer cruises, like 2 weeks and at least a week.
Because you got to make it worthwhile. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't get into cruising till like 2012.
Our first one was 2009. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are people who have the sign on Castaway, like their name is on Castaway, which means they've done at least 50 cruises, who started cruising in like 2017, and that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like that is a lot of itineraries in just a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the ships. My favorite is sort of right now the Dream Class. I think that's the sweet spot between modern cruise experience and amenities and cost.
Yeah.
I've been on the Wish. I like the Wish. I like the food. But my first experience was on the Fantasy. So that's sort of like, everyone's favorite ship is generally their first or second.
The first, of course.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I like the quarter. I haven't been on the Destiny, the Treasure, or the Adventure yet. And I really want to go on the Adventure because that looks just like bonkers. But
it looks like chaos.
Oh, yeah. But for me, like coming from the East Coast, that's a 19-hour flight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's difficult. Yeah.
We actually had Scott Gustin on.
Scott! From Greensboro. Yeah. Yes. That's how I know him.
He was on, probably a couple months ago. I'm doing math as like when this drops and things like that. But and he was on one of the early cruises, and it was an experience. I think we're going to wait for that one to settle out a little.
Yeah.
It's definitely our completionist Disney adult side says, we have to check that box, but it might be a hot minute before we get over there.
Yeah. I think
love Scott. Scott's great. Yeah.
Yes.
If Disney had built that ship from the ground up, we'd want to go on it a lot more than we do right now.
That's the thing. I've watched some video tours of it, and it's weird because your brain is doing two things at the same time. One, you're like, okay, I recognize the theming, for this, but two, it's in completely the wrong deck, and it doesn't look like the other ones,
right?
Yeah.
Right? Like why are there 17 decks here, and why is all the counter service restaurants square footage 100 square feet?
Yeah,
it's all
right.
very small. Yeah.
Right. And your kind of main lobby atrium-ish area where your like main statue turns into a restaurant at night. Like, I don't understand. There's some. I
want to go see it just for the difference. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say they didn't have their data scientists and analytics people working on that to make a big ship.
Do you know how much they paid for the ship when?
It was like $47 million. Or something
exactly. And it's funny because there was a line in their annual report, and it was like, the expense of acquiring the ship is not a material investment. We're not even going to list it separately.
Crazy.
They bought it for $1 million over the scrap value.
That's crazy.
Which
they
was
spent
really
a little bit more on it.
$1 billion, to upfit it. Yeah, but still, I mean, they saved a couple $100 million, so totally worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're circling back again, tangents. We love them. Your crowd calendar is something that we rely on a lot. How do you guys actually build those predictions?
Oh God. So it's one of the most difficult things that we do. And it involves a ton of data analysis and machine learning. So I mentioned earlier that we capture wait times, from our users, from our staff, and from the My Disney Experience app, also from Universal's app. For every wait time that we get, we attach between 200 and 600 pieces of data that explain what was going on in the resort at that time that may have contributed to that wait time. So for example, if we, like right now, it's 11:45 a.m. If we capture a wait time for Space Mountain that says 50 minutes, we're capturing things for every piece of data there. We capture things like, what were the park operating hours at the Magic Kingdom today or in Disneyland today? What were the operating hours for all the other parks? Were there special events yesterday, today, or tomorrow? Because we know that things like Halloween parties at the Magic Kingdom affect crowds substantially. So not only do we get like park operational details, we also look at things like the school schedules for the 100 largest school systems in the United States, and then weigh that based on population and distance from Walt Disney World.
Right.
Because like Orlando schools schedules have a vastly different impact on Walt Disney World than like Detroit, Michigan.
Sure.
Right. But we know, like New York, for example, 6% of Walt Disney World visitors come from the New York, New Jersey area. So when those schools are all up at the same time, that's a significant impact to Walt Disney World. Yeah. So we factor that in. And then we've got some fairly sophisticated machine learning models that try and incorporate those data. If you guys are familiar with how decision trees work, machine learning models are basically making decision trees that say, what are the factors that look like they're contributing to this over time? And then we spit that out. And it's more complicated than that, but that's the general idea. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What was going on in my brain as you were describing that is basically it was popping up all of these tables in like a relational database model of like, and trying to figure out like how all of these things relate. That is so cool.
We capture things like macroeconomic indicators for the United States, Canada, and Brazil. Because if you think about how people plan a trip to a theme park, the people who are in the theme park today, the people who are in Walt Disney World today, did not wake up this morning and decide to go to Walt Disney World. They planned that trip months ago.
Yes.
Right.
And when they did that, they were, I'm assuming, taking into account things like, what's the U.S. unemployment rate? How do I feel about my own financial future right now? What's the state of the economy that I feel right now? So things like consumer sentiment is really important. But those are lagging indicators, right? The decisions that the fact that there are people in the parks today use the data from 6 months ago or 3 months ago to make those decisions. So we look at that as a lagging indicator, and then we have to figure out how to project those things going forward. But yeah, there's an entire set of columns in a table somewhere that say things like, normalized U.S. gasoline prices per gallon, stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Too much right now.
Yeah. School schedules are actually a really big factor.
That makes
sure.
sense,
for that,
yeah.
So Magic Kingdom, so park events, park hours, school schedules, those are the big ones.
Got it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a crowd calendar or wait time estimates that power a touring plan, how do you check them against what really happens in the park?
So we make predictions, right?
Mhm.
And then our crowd calendar predictions use the wait times at popular attractions between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. to determine crowd level, right?
Okay.
So, and we'll do some background on this. You guys have all seen Swiss Family Treehouse. Swiss Family Treehouse has a posted wait time in MDE, which is always, it's either always 0, 5, or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
right? But it's literally always 0, 5, or 10 minutes, right? If you look at the variance over time, the average wait time per Swiss Family Treehouse is between 5 and 5.5 minutes every day, which means Swiss Family Treehouse is not a great predictor not a great indicator of crowds in the park.
Right.
For like 363 days out of the year.
Yeah.
So you should not include that in your analysis, because if you add a bunch of not popular rides into your analysis, what it does is it sort of squishes all the other wait time averages together,
Yeah.
and it makes it harder to discern trends.
Yep.
So one of the things that we do for our crowd calendar is we ignore less popular attractions like Enchanted Tiki Room or the Railroad or Swiss Family Treehouse. We focus on core attractions. And we do it between 11 and 5 because, as I like to point out, if you're the first person in the park, your wait time everywhere is 0. But that doesn't really give you any additional information about crowds. What you really want to know is what's the difference when things get really crowded. So again, you're trying to isolate the differences in crowd levels as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to focus on peak times of the day.
Are there rides that are on the opposite side of that scale that are always super busy no matter how many people are in the park that you have to discount?
There are certain rides that are very good indicators of crowds. Buzz Lightyear, Haunted Mansions, Summer's Mine Train. There are certain Slinky Dog Dash is always going to be super popular no matter what. The peak wait time is sometimes interesting for that, because that you can use to differentiate crowds as well.
Okay.
Soarin' used to be. Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind now is probably one of those. Yeah. So there are definitely things. Yeah.
Got it.
The other interesting thing is that obviously we've looked at things like how much does it cost to get into the Magic Kingdom for one day, and is that a good predictor of crowds? And it turns out it's not. For a variety of reasons. One is that
Disney loves to hear you say that.
it's not great, and there's a couple of reasons why. One is a fact, and one I think is my hypothesis. But if you look at the price of tickets in October, November, and December, those are generally higher price seasons for Disney. But remember, when the Magic Kingdom has a Halloween or Christmas party event, on that day, the crowds are as low as they're going to be, within weeks of that, right? It's basically on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being very busy. It's always a 1.
Right.
But the price of the tickets don't reflect that. What does seem to be better, and this is actually something I learned from Lucy McGowan at Wake Forest. So Lucy gives us a class once a year in the spring and lets them we give them data, and they investigate some question.
Yeah.
And so the question that I had them look at this spring, was around lane return times. And one of the things that Lucy's students found out, was that ticket prices are not a great indicator of Lightning Lane distribution times. But Lightning Lane prices are a weak but significant indicator. So you can improve your predictions by 10% if you incorporate in the cost of Lightning Lane at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Interesting.
Into the predictions. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's stuff like that. Yeah. It's kind of funny because like I know this, right? Because we've done the analysis on it, and it's kind of funny to see like a large language model try to answer a question like, when is the Magic Kingdom going to be busy and not busy? Because unless enough websites have done that sort of sophisticated analysis or detailed analysis, it's never going to pick it up. So the LLM's not going to learn unless multiple places have said the same thing. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Have you ever had to completely rebuild models because something completely changed overnight? And we also have to ask, what did the pandemic do to your data?
The pandemic, we basically threw out all the data from 2020 and 2021. We don't consider it in a lot of models. There have been significant events in Disney park operations and Universal park operations that completely change the data. And I'll mention one. You guys remember in mid-2024, Disney changed the Disability Access Service eligibility rules. And that broke wait time analysis. Because, and I'm not saying anything controversial here, the abuse in the DAS system was so great. Between 2021, when Disney introduced Genie Plus, to mid-2024. The abuse was so great that it was significantly altering both posted wait times and Lightning Lane distribution in the parks.
Wow.
So without a doubt, 100%. And again, that's not controversial. In 2012, Disney was running the old guest assistance card program, and they were sued by somebody who wanted to change the rules. And as part of that lawsuit, the lawsuit is AL versus Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. You can find the transcripts online. But as part of the testimony that Disney gave on that, they called in Bruce Laval, who actually invented the FastPass system. And Bruce is great. I've interacted with him one or two times, just the most helpful dude. One of the things that Bruce said was, if you look at the analytics, 3.5% of the people in a park on a given day qualify for DAS. So 3.5% of the population in the park has a disability access card or service.
Right.
That 3.5% of people account for 30-some% of the rides on popular rides. So the people who were using DAS were experiencing popular rides at rates up to 10 times higher than guests without disability access cards.
Wow.
And internally, like I've seen some internal Disney numbers that say things like, after Disney introduced Genie Plus, obviously there was a financial incentive for people to game the system and claim disabilities that weren't there, so you wouldn't have to pay $100 a day for your for fast passes, right?
Right.
Internally, I've seen spreadsheets that say for certain popular rides in the Magic Kingdom, the number of guests using disability access in the Lightning Lane was just under 80% of the people in the Lightning Lane line.
Wow.
Holy cow.
And so when I saw that number, I was like, okay, there's no way that can be true, right? 80% of the people in the line cannot have a disability that prevents them from waiting in the standby line. So we went back and actually did some research on this. We looked at, we have contacts at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, at the Census Bureau, and I looked at the Social Security data on disability. And it turns out the vast majority of disabled Americans are senior citizens, right? The disabilities come through normal aging mostly, or they come through things like, I was a coal miner in West Virginia and I got black lung, right? Things like that. The vast majority of disabilities are either age or occupation related. But it turns out that really old senior citizens and disabled coal miners do not travel to Disney World at the same rates as families with young children. So in order to make sense of that, in order to get to an explanation for why 80% of the people in a Lightning Lane line were claiming a disability, you basically had to make a chain of assumptions where every step in that chain was the worst possible thing that could happen. Okay, every disabled coal miner from West Virginia decides to visit Walt Disney World at the same time. They all bring their extended family, and everyone in that extended family wants to go on, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at the same time, right? And it's just like this continuous step of thing, and obviously that's never going to happen, right? The odds of any one of those events, So it was abuse, and I'm super confident in saying that there was a certain level of abuse in there that Disney just had to cut down. And if you remember, they did this crackdown right before Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened in the Magic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned after the fact, not talking directly to Disney, but to people who sort of knew the conversation, was their big concern was that when Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened, something like 100% of the Lightning Lane line would be claimed by guests claiming disability.
Huh.
And obviously that was just going to ruin the experience for everyone. Like that was just unsustainable. Yeah.
Right.
So, so going back to your question, Alicia, about, do you ever have to redo the models? Yes, we have before and after events for, we say that the cutover date is July 1st, 2024, because Disney announced that DAS change in May, but they grandfathered in people who all already qualified under the old system.
Right.
We're saying July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, so wait times before July 1st, 2024, vastly different than after.
Huh. Similarly, you were talking about how you basically threw out, 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
From what you're seeing now, are we quote unquote back to normal, or have too many things and variables changed so that's really difficult to say whether we are or not?
We have not yet got back to pre-pandemic wait times or crowd levels, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again. At least not for a long time. And it's really interesting because when we do our crowd calendar, we're based on historical wait times, and the underlying scale, like an average wait of 35 minutes is always like a 4 or 5 for us, whatever the number is, right?
Right.
And that hasn't changed. The interesting thing for us now is people have started to forget what the parks were like before the pandemic.
Huh.
So I'll give you an example. One of the largest wait times we've ever seen in the parks was 305 minutes for Soarin' on a New Year's Eve pre-pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So wow. 5 hours and 5 minutes. And by the way, my first question then is like, to get to 5 hours and 5 minutes, someone had to get in line at exactly 5 hour wait time to make it 5 hours and 5 minutes. What's the thought process of that person? Like,
right.
Okay, I'm going to spend, the next half a day getting in line for this one. Like, what went through you? Anyway, okay. So we haven't got back to those points yet, but that was that's obviously a 10 out of 10 crowd level.
Right.
So these days now, when people see like a 65 or 75 minute wait at Soarin', like very occasionally I will get an email that says, "Oh my God, your crowd calendar was completely off. You said it was going to be a 5, but there was a 65 or 75 minute wait at Soarin', and that's got to be a 10." And I'm like, oh, if only it were, right?
You sweet summer child.
I know, yeah. Because it will be again eventually, right? We don't want to change the scale, because we're now at the very beginning of a building boom in the theme parks, right? Tropical Americas is going to open in 2027. Piston Peak's going to open, Villains Land's going to open, Monstropolis is going to open. 2028, 2029, 2030. We're going to have large crowds again.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll get back to a point where there are more 10 out of 10 days in the park. But it's kind of funny that people going to the parks these days don't remember, 180-minute wait for Peter Pan's flight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's communicating what a 1 to 10 crowd level means is, I think, our primary challenge on the website. Yeah.
You do have something saying that, though.
We do, yeah. And we try and tie it now, like in the last website we did, we tried to give people an indication of what that means. So we'd say something like, a crowd level 5 at Summerdore's Mine Train, really popular, right, is generally a wait time between this and this. Yeah. The other thing that we've learned over time, and this is not a knock on anyone, but the average American's relationship to math is not great. Like the vast majority of Americans understand math only as it relates to money, because that's how they deal with it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Communicating things like average is extremely difficult for us to do for anyone to do to the general public. When you start, just in general. When you start
you also need to assume that people are going to actually read what you put on your website.
Yeah, and they don't. Nobody reads. Nobody reads anything. But when we start talking about things like confidence levels and confidence intervals, that's just that only nerds get that, right? Mm-hmm. So when I talk to college kids all the time, who college kids studying math or operations research and who are interested in theme parks, I'm like, the big challenge you have isn't necessarily acquiring the data or making predictions. It's explaining what you're doing to the average American who doesn't understand, who has never seen Excel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's our challenge, right? It's our product. It's our job to communicate effectively. Right. And when when people don't understand that that's our fault. It's not the user's fault, right?
Yeah, as a nerd, one of the most fun classes I had to take when I was in college, I had a business degree in MIS, and I had to take a stats class, and it was just eye-opening and has been foundational in everything I have done since. And this past quarter, our daughter, she's a psych major, but had to do a stats class.
Stats class
going
studies,
into it. She's like, oh, I don't really like math and blah, blah. I was like, no. You're going to actually like this. And she did. I was like, yes, like win. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great because I think a lot of the data that we have is actually very good, and people should make decisions based on the data, even when it's wrong. We're basically playing probabilities, right? So like if I say you should go to Slinky Dog Dash first thing in the morning, right? One day out of every 7 days in a week, Slinky Dog's going to be down at rope drop, and that's just that advice isn't going to work, right? But you don't know that in advance. So if you're right 6 out of 7 times, that's about as good as it's going to get. Like that's the best advice you could probably get, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's wrong. And what you could do is you could communicate to people like, you've got a 6 and 7 chance of that being right, but conceptually, people will fixate on the one time it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's again, that's an ongoing challenge. Yeah. By the way, the really funny thing is, at Wake Forest in previous years, some of Lucy's students answered the question about expected value. And it was like this: if you know the downtime at rope drop for every attraction in Hollywood Studios, and you know what amount of time you could wait if you rope drop the attraction versus visiting it later in the day, how do you incorporate the odds that a ride is going to be down at rope drop with the expected value? And the funny thing was they looked at every possible initial touring plan with 3 different steps. Like, do I go to Slinky Dog first, then Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, then whatever. So they looked at every possible, I think at the time there were like 72 different combinations. They looked at every one of them. But their conclusion was what Disney should do is have a cast member stand on Hollywood Boulevard, and as guests walk into the park, say, Slinky Dog Dash isn't running right now, go somewhere else. Because the worst thing that you could do as a guest, the worst experience you could have is get your family up early for extra magic hour mornings, right? Or early theme park entry mornings, right? Get everyone up at 6:30 a.m. to be on the bus at 6:45, to be at the park at 7:15 for 7:30 a.m. opening. Walk all the way to Slinky Dog Dash, be first in line for that, and then have the ride not open. Because anywhere you go after that, you're basically at the back of a line now, and you've wasted all that effort.
Yep.
And so and Disney actually does this, but for one ride. They do it for Rise of the Resistance, because Rise is so unreliable in the morning. I guess they've got enough, but they don't do it for any other ride. So they did this analysis. It was a great PowerPoint presentation they came up with. We validated the results in the park by sending people over and over again to test the results. And then I eventually sent it on to Disney. And I was like, hey, you already have someone on Hollywood Boulevard saying whether Rise of the Resistance is up. Could you also tell us about Slinky Dog Dash? And they didn't. And I think the reason is, honest to God, is because if you start saying things like, a couple days a month, Slinky and Rise are going to be down.
That's bad.
But the negative impact to guest satisfaction then, why the hell did I get up so early when all these rides are down? I think they decided against that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see, because we share data with Disney all the time, and some stuff is genuinely useful to them and they implement it, and sometimes they don't. And we never hear back why they don't, but you can sort of figure it out.
Yeah. Well, there are a ton of more questions I want to ask, and we've got to figure out how to talk again. But I do want to pivot and give a little time. You were starting to tell some stories before we hit the record button. So I want to pivot slightly. How did you get linked up with Jim Hill and start off the Disney Dish podcast?
All right. I was walking through the Animal Kingdom one day, way back early 2000s. And Jim was giving a unauthorized tour of, not unauthorized, he was let's say not sanctioned, tour to a group of people, basically walking through the park and telling stories about how the rides were developed. Because remember, Animal Kingdom opened in 98.
Right.
So, in the early 2000s, it's still open. She was basically telling the history of how the park got developed.
Yeah.
And I joined this group. I sort of tagged along, and at the end, I introduced myself. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Jim used to be a writer for John Candy, the comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
And Jim is very, very funny in person. He great stories. Obviously, he has huge connections inside Disney. So it's like, we should do something. So I just started officially co-authoring the Unofficial Guide. I was like, hey, could we get together, once a year when I'm updating the book and have you tell me stories about either why Disney built something that just opened or something that they're building. So like, if they're at the time, I think they were building Soarin'. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what's the story? What's this going to be? What's inspiring it? Or, after it opened, like, what were they going for? And so once a year we would get together and I would set aside an entire day and we would basically get on a call. I would open up a, Microsoft Word and we would just go attraction by attraction, land by land through all 4 parks. Mm. And he would tell stories. And then we would figure out how to summarize them succinctly and which ones were best for the book.
Right.
And then sometime in like 2010, I was like, we should just record this as a podcast because I was doing the WDW Today podcast with Mike Scopa, Matt Hotchberg, and Mike Newell. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we should do this as a podcast. And then in 2012, we actually launched it as a podcast. And we did a walk around through the parks, basically just exactly what we would do for updating the book. Mm-hmm. And that caught on immediately. And we're like, oh, we should do this as a podcast. And so we did it. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's bizarre, by the way, too. So Jim Hill has obviously a ton of industry contacts.
Yeah.
Jim Scholl, our partner on the Disney Unpacked shows, is the former executive creative director of Walt Disney Imagineering. Mm-hmm. Jim Scholl built Rock and Roller Coaster. He built all the Toy Story lands. Those are all his designs. So having him on the show is a bunch of great stories about the parks. But I was just at IAAPA with them in November and walking. So IAAPA is a trade show for theme park people from all over the world. It's in Orlando. It's at the convention center. They actually build amusement park rides out in the parking lot. It's bizarre to watch. But going through IAAPA with those two is the most surreal experience you could have in the themed entertainment industry. And I like to say IAAPA is the land where non-disclosures go to die. Because and I'll give you an example. Like we walked into the show floor day one, like IAAPA day one, 15 minutes after the thing opens, right? So like my coffee still hasn't kicked in. And we walk in and I recognize from a distance somebody who works for a theme park and their entourage. And I know this person is a source for Jim and Jim
right.
for the show. But I don't know that anyone knows that they know each other. Mm. So they go up and start, this person and Jim start talking, and I'm with the entourage. And my initial approach to this is, it's nice to meet you. I guess these guys are introducing themselves, but my assumption was that I had to assume or pretend that Jim and Jim don't know this person. They'd never met before in their lives, right? And out of one ear, I can hear Jim, and this person saying, remember, this is November, it's right before Thanksgiving. Yeah. Are the kids coming home from college, for Thanksgiving? Or you go to your parents' lake house? And I'm looking at these people like Jim Hill has never met this person before in their lives, right? Like, I don't know what they're talking. And, it was weird. But but Jim and Jim have really great industry connections. And I think that's what makes the show really fun to listen to.
You often joke that Disney will never invite you to a press event because you already know too much. Where do you get all these stories?
So the vast majority of people in any theme park company, Disney and Universal, appreciate not only what we do, but specifically what I do, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Disney Slack leak that came out a couple of years ago, where there was a data dump of internal Disney Slack communications. Mm-hmm. There's like terabytes of information. First thing I did, obviously, is look up what Disney said about me, and everything was positive. Right. So internally, they know, stuff like that. Where we tend to run into issues is where I say things that aren't entirely positive, right? So from the point of the unofficial guide and the point of touringplans.com is to help consumers spend their money and time in theme parks wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a ride isn't worth your time or a restaurant isn't worth your money, we have to say that. That's our job, right? And that doesn't get you on the media list for a theme park, right? Because, Disney World is not Lake Wobegon, where every child is above average.
Right.
And that fundamentally, it's not in Disney's best interest to do it. Like, I understand how the game is played, right? Like, even if I'm going to say something positive 80% of the time, because 80% of the time Disney does it great, it's the 20% that they don't want to invite me for, because I'll say it. That's one thing, and that's the reason why I don't get on media events. The weird thing is, like, now, when I do interviews with TV or television stations or newspaper, one of the first questions they'll ask me is, do you get invited to Disney media events? And because they're filtering out those. They don't want to hear from people who are on the Disney media list now, because they know that that's not an unbiased opinion.
Right.
So the weird thing is, like, for social media, the way that Disney's operating is absolutely right. For national media, it's the exact opposite of what you want to do. Basically, no one trusts a Disney influencer,
right,
for a newspaper or TV interview, which is really interesting. Yeah, so that's. But going back to your question, Lisa, about how we get the information, I've been doing this a long time, and that there are people inside the companies who work in theme parks who grew up listening to us. Like, I was walking through Epic Universe during a preview one time, and somebody who was shaping concrete walked up to me and said, I got into theme parks because of you. And I was like, that's the greatest thing I could ever hear. Thank you so much for that. And so, sometimes they talk, right? That stuff, and they tell us things. That's one thing. Like, basically fans who are like, you'll find this thing interesting. And I appreciate that, right? Don't get me wrong. That's fantastic. The other thing, and I think Jim Hill has alluded to this before, a lot of times the stuff that we get comes directly from Disney or Universal as a sort of trial balloon for an idea.
Yeah.
And that's an effective way of gauging. So, and we know that, right? Like, I know when they do this.
Right.
We have a general sense of, like, this is happening. So it's funny that, because we say things that about, future plans, or don't get invited to media events, but at the same time, like, the call is coming from inside the house, guys. Like, again, I like to tell people at Disney, like, the relationship between sort of like Jim and I is not black and white. You have to be comfortable with, like, operating in sort of gray zones, where, again, like, 80% of the time we're all on the same page. 20% of the time we just can't be, because that's the nature of the relationship.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Yeah.
So knowing all that, looking ahead to D23 later this summer, as someone who has their finger on Disney's pulse, what's on your personal wish list for what you really want? Not necessarily what you think, but what would you really want to hear from Josh D'Amaro and his team?
I think Josh has been very good as CEO so far. He's said things that we would not expect a CEO to say about how the theme parks work. And the example that I give is, he said that, guests like Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, but they don't love it. Yeah. I think Josh has done a great job as CEO so far. The thing that I would be interested in is, specifically, we don't know what the second ride at Piston Peak is going to be in Frontierland. We don't know anything about Villains Land officially. I'd love to hear about that. And then sort of like timelines for opening. And the same thing in Disneyland as well. What's the timeline for Avengers Campus? What's the timeline for Disneyland Forward? I'd love to hear those things. Yeah. I don't think we might. I think it's actually kind of surprising to me that we didn't hear at D23 the Carousel of Progress announcement. Because that was relatively big news. You think they would have saved it for D23. My suspicion is, if you guys noticed, they timed that announcement, that announcement fell on the exact same day that Universal Parks announced the opening date for their Texas park.
Right.
I don't think that was a coincidence.
They keep some stuff in their back pocket
I don't.
just in case.
I think they do, 100%. Because from what I know about that announcement, it was only leaked to influencers a couple of days before it happened. And so that tells me that they got advanced warning. Again, I suspect, right? But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
So that's that. Yeah. So I'd love to hear that. We're not yet at a point where we are going to get information about the phase 2 Disney Parks expansion. So remember a couple of years ago when Bob Iger was CEO, Bob and Josh announced a 10-year, $60 billion investment in parks and experiences.
Yeah.
Right. And I think they may have announced in 2023, but really started in 2025. And so everything that we know right now, everything that's being built is basically phase 1.
Right.
We haven't heard anything about phase 2. I don't expect we're going to hear anything about that until like 2028, 2029.
Yeah.
But, just to hear sort of like directionally what parks are going to happen next, what's going to be on the cruise line, when they go to 13 ships eventually, stuff like that. I don't think we will. I think the stuff that we're going to, like for this D23, we're going to hear more about what the Encanto ride actually is, more about the Indiana Jones ride, and more about Piston Peak, right? We're going to get more details. Yeah. But I'd love to hear, like, looking forward, blue sky, what park is going to be the next one to get a major expansion? And what are we thinking there? I don't think we will, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, in the interest of time, like I said, I could monopolize the rest of your day, but I will demur. Yeah. But it is now time for Alicia's patented Disney torture test. But you are a Disney professional. Still, good luck.
There's a lot I don't know. I mean, I know. I tell Laurel all the time, I'm good at like one, maybe two things. And outside of that, let's see.
Well, this is not patented, nor is it torture. Just to allay your fears here. What this is just your favorites from across Mickey's umbrella. Yeah. So Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, anything under there. Who's your favorite character?
Mickey Mouse. The first tattoo I ever got was Mickey Mouse.
Nice. Favorite movie?
Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl.
Nice.
Do you have a favorite ride?
Used to be Splash Mountain, and I know I loved Splash Mountain before I knew about the background. I can't help that. It's like falling in love with somebody who's flawed. These days, it's the three rides that I will go on every single time I'm in a park. Pirates of the Caribbean. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I think Sherita Carter and team did a fantastic job on that ride. I love the new Mickey Mouse cartoons.
Yep.
They are genius. Like if you've ever seen Potato Land, that is one of the great pieces of American animation. Like I will that in like the Bugs Bunny What's Opera doc. Also, Rock and Roller Coaster with the Muppets is genius. I don't love the songs, but everything about that is fantastic. Those are my three favorites now.
Nice.
Disney World or Disneyland?
Disney World, without a doubt. Disneyland is Disney World beta, 0.9.
Out of all the individual parks that you have been to, which one is your favorite?
Epcot, 1995. So when Epcot had Horizons, the original World of Motion, the optimistic view of the future that Epcot had back then in its attractions, in its signage, in its songs, in its background music, made me fall in love with the parks. So when I was writing my master's thesis, which was on this basic problem of minimizing your wait line at theme parks, I listened to the 1991 official soundtrack of the Magic Kingdom at Epcot to the point where I can't listen to it anymore because it's like my wife says it's of a particular place and time. And it just brings back memories of me at 2:00 in the morning, sitting in front of a computer, trying to write a 300-page master's thesis. And I loved that park was so different than the Magic Kingdom. And it was so built for, slightly autistic ADD people like me, that, had a positive view of technology in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know that's ever going to be replicated. Like they'll never build another Epcot. No one will ever build another Epcot.
Yeah.
But for a time it was glorious. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the link between music and doing something, because for me, it's reggae and stats, because our college radio station had like a reggae block, like the 2 hours before my stats class, and that's when I did all my homework.
Yeah, even right now, like I listen to Disney background music with no words as my background music, like getting up in the morning. It gets me in the right mood. Like the Magic Kingdom entrance background music loop is about an hour and 5 minutes. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite hotel or resort?
Okay. So it's probably the Polynesian. I also love the Wilderness Lodge. Like the Poly for me is like, I love the especially at night, it's just beautiful. I really like the Poly Island Tower more than I thought I would. It's better it's better when you're a guest than just looking at it. Because you've got excellent views of the Magic Kingdom fireworks if you stay on the Seven Seas Lagoon side of it. My backup would be the Wilderness Lodge, again, because I like the theming. The rooms aren't great, but the pool is good. Geyser Point is fun. I like America's national parks. And the background music is Aaron Copland a lot. Right. And especially like Western music, and you get like the Billy the Kid music suite and Appalachian Spring and stuff like that. And it's very American to me. And I like that stuff. Yeah.
Favorite DCL ship?
The Dream. So Laurel and I were on the Dream doing Copenhagen in Northern Europe. And it just came out of refurb. And when I say that's one of the best vacations I've ever had, not Disney vacations, but one of the best vacations I've ever had, like the ship was spotless. The ports were fantastic. Crew members were excellent. I really like the ship. By the way, we were on a shore excursion in Kiel, Germany. And like, you go to Europe and you want to find like all the old historic places and things like that. So we were walking through, got off the ship, started walking towards the center of town. I happened to stop an old German grandmother and said, "Excuse me, can you direct us to the old part of town? And we're looking for churches and stuff like that." And she looked at me and in perfect English said, "You bombed it during the war." Yep. Oops. There's no recovering from that conversation, by the way. You say thank you and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, good times. Go ahead, Alicia.
Your favorite restaurant?
Victoria and Albert's is an excellent restaurant. The general manager there, the proprietor, Israel Perez, won the 2024 Michelin Award for service for Florida. And honest to God, I can't think of any other person I know in any other industry who deserves that kind of award more than him. Israel has dedicated his life to elevating restaurant experiences. He is the best at what he does that I've ever met. Victoria and Albert's, like on a day-to-day basis, I like Pecos Bills. There's nothing wrong with Pecos Bills. Columbia Harbor House is actually the highest rated restaurant in the Magic Kingdom. That was sort of by default. I was just there last week. So yeah.
We haven't hit Victoria and Albert's yet. It is on our list, though.
Yes.
It is an experience. Yeah.
If you haven't been out there, and I'm assuming you guys are going out for D23 here in a couple months or so, the new Napa Rose.
Napa Rose. Yeah, I haven't been there since the refurb. Yeah.
Is amazing. I will say it is gunning for a Michelin star food-wise. Yeah. I don't know that the snobs at that make those decisions will cough up a star given the atmosphere, though. So
when the first year that Michelin did stars for Orlando, V&A didn't get one. And I was like, why? And so I suspect from talking to people, the issue, there were multiple issues. One was it had not been reopened long enough after the pandemic to establish a baseline. Number two, they had recently got a new chef. And I think Michelin generally wants to see that chef get comfortable for a couple of years before they do a full evaluation. So I think Napa Rose is probably on the list of places to visit, but needs a couple of years of stability and consistency to get there. I think they eventually will. I think V&A actually is a 2-star restaurant. And it is really surprising to me that they don't have 2 stars. Like I've never been to a 3-star restaurant. I've been to several 2 stars and a bunch of 1s.
Yeah.
V&A is as good as any 2-star restaurant I've ever been to. Like they deserve 2. And I think that's just a matter of time. Again, it's a consistency thing over time. Yeah.
Just since you have much more experience in this than we do, how would you compare something like Remy's on the Dream to a V&A and then compare that to like a Michelin star kind of experience?
Remy should probably get a star too. I think the issue with that is how is a Michelin reviewer going to go enough times on a cruise
Right.
to evaluate because you're not just paying for the meal, you're paying for the entire cruise. And eventually over time, people are going to figure out what you're doing, right? So that's never going to happen, although it probably deserves a star. Right. The things that make a restaurant worth a star for me would be, obviously you've got to prepare the food correctly every single time. But you also have to show some inventiveness in the presentation and in the use of ingredients, right? And that's the thing that makes a Michelin star restaurant different than, a place that is, mom and pop place that is consistently good. Like the canonical restaurant that I use for rating Italian restaurants, like mom and pop Italian restaurants, is this place that Scott Gustin and I go to in Greensboro called Elizabeth's Pizzeria, which serves like the very best chicken parm I've ever had. And you can't make it better, right? It's like home cooking. But that's never going to get a Michelin star because it's chicken parm. Like, what would you have to do to it? You'd have to make it $75 chicken parm instead of $20 chicken parm. But then that's not what Elizabeth does, right? So that's the difference there. You've got to use elevated ingredients, unusual ingredients presented in novel ways that really highlight either the core purpose of the dish, like if you're doing like a cassoulet, right? You have to highlight the duck in the 3-day, preparation process. Or you've got to use ingredients in an unusual way. On the ship, I think the first time we ever went to Remy, did you guys ever have the grilled cheese and tomato soup cube?
Yes.
Okay, so it's for our listeners. Imagine something a little bit bigger than a sugar cube. That is an entire grilled cheese sandwich filled with tomato soup in a single bite. And imagine what it takes to present that, right? It's basically the size of a dice, but it's a complete meal in a die.
Right.
I looked at that and I was like, I don't know who thought of this, but that's that's why we're paying so much.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. That's the difference there.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, last one. Your favorite Disney snack?
I am a sucker for a Mickey pretzel with the industrial cheese and a Coke. It's basically all carbs and it's a sugar high, but that is my go-to snack when I want to drink a soda in the parks.
Nice.
Yeah, that is my favorite thing. Yeah,
you can't go wrong with plastic cheese.
Yeah, and it's got this weird sort of like Chernobyl orange glow to it. Like I haven't put it in a dark room, but I'm pretty sure I could. It would glow.
It glows in the daytime. I mean, it's got to glow in the evening.
Exactly. Yeah, those are my favorite things. Yeah.
Awesome.
This has been super fun, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure. Thank you for being available. Thank you for nerding out a little with us and peeling back the curtain and showing us, the guy pulling the strings back there that is making magic happen for lots of guests across the globe. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. It was such a pleasure getting to know you today.
Let me know when you guys make it to Florida.
A few moments later.
Oh, the conversations we just had after we hit stop. You guys will never hear them. Nope. And I am sworn to secrecy, as is Alicia. The NDA from Len Testa was quite substantive. But we signed it against our lawyer's advice. And that was worth it.
Very much so.
That was worth it. Anyhow, thank you so much to Len for sharing stories and sharing time and coming on. That was everything I was hoping it would be.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, just a reminder that we are not affiliated with Disney or any of its subsidiaries. Everything you hear on the show is based on personal experiences, opinions, and questionable snack choices. We are, however, proudly affiliated with fun.
Yes.
And data.
Yeah. If you're planning a Disney vacation, we always recommend working with a travel advisor or reaching out to Disney directly to help make the magic happen. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to rate and review this show. This really helps other Disney fans find us.
If you have a question or a topic suggestion or even a Disney story you'd love to share, please send us an email at podcast@ourmousecapades.com.
You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Our Mousecapades, and on YouTube at Our Mousecapades Pod. And don't forget to share us with your friends, your family, and Disney fans of all ages.
Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.